Ring the bell. I know it all too well. Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Wacky Willis,
I'm Matt Willis.
and welcome to another episode of Big Mouth Willie Bass Podcast.
Yeah. Episode
Matt,
19. We made it this far.
I think I picked the wrong night to wear my Lakers hat, my Lakers shirt, because boy, did they play like dog crap tonight.
They lost to those pesky Pistons of all teams. Who would have thought?
The 4-win Pistons took them down tonight. So, yeah, we are talking Lakers basketball, at least very briefly tonight, but just wanted to kind of set the stage there. Unfortunately, they did lose, so off to a bad start already with this episode, Matt.
Yeah, well, I think the viewers like it when we get mad. So, it'll probably help the view count.
Oh, yes. They love seeing other people suffer.
I don't think they want to see us be happy. So,
Nobody likes seeing anybody be happy anymore.
Exactly.
Oh, my goodness. What a sad world we live in.
But at the very least, we bring entertainment.
Oh, yeah. We're clowns. We belong in the circus. Yeah. If they were still around. So we're going to be talking Lakers basketball tonight. We're going to be breaking down. Well, we're actually going to kind of recap the conference championship games briefly because next week, Matt, we're going to do a full-on Super Bowl preview with our good buddy Scott Childs, who's one of the biggest football fans around. So we're going to kind of save most of the football talk for next week, but obviously I did want to kind of recap what happened over the weekend in those games. And then lastly, we will go over the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Is anybody going to the Hall of Fame this year? You'll find out shortly. We'll discuss that.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Oh, I wonder, what's in a Wonder Boy?
Wonder Boy.
Tenacious D. All right, man. Let's go ahead and break down these conference championship games and what happened. So, in the NFC side, you had the Tampa Bay Brady's take down the Green Bay Fudge Packers 31-28, just as you predicted, Matt. You said that Brady was going to get to another Super Bowl. Well, gosh darn it, that's exactly what happened. Congratulations.
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely happy that he's going back, but I mean, I did predict it right, so I got that going for me at least. But yeah, I mean, he pulled through again. I mean, and once again, Aaron Rodgers is sent home. So I think you mentioned it in the last episode, but I think you said that if Rodgers lost, that's going to be another stain on his legacy, and I agree because he lost to Brady. He had his chance and he failed. So what can you say?
And he's now 1-4 in NFC Championship games, Matt.
It's not good, I'm telling you. Like he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Don't get me wrong, but he's definitely not up there with the all-time greats, with the Bradys and the Mannings.
Yeah, it's crazy because I really feel like he's just one more Super Bowl win away from probably being in that discussion or being like discussed as, oh, he's probably a top 5 quarterback of all time. Some people might even still put him in the top 10 as we sit here right now, but I really do feel like him just not being able to get over the hump here since he was able to get to his one and only Super Bowl back in the 2010 season. It's going to hurt him. Like, he's running out of time. He's 37? I think he's going to be 38 soon. So yeah. How many more cracks is he going to have at this? I don't know. And look, I'm not saying it's all on his shoulders, but did he play a great game against the Bucs? Not necessarily. He was under duress the entire game. I mean, I don't know how many times he got sacked, but it seemed like every other play he was running for his life. So give the Bucs defense some credit there. They definitely stepped up. But man, I think this definitely hurts him a little bit. I mean, it's hard to get to a conference championship game. He's made it there twice now in a row, and like I said, he's lost. So we'll see what happens next season, man. But it's not looking too good there for Mr. Rodgers.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting too because they drafted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I was going to say they drafted Jordan Love in the first round last year. So, they got a quarterback in the back wing, so to speak. So, I mean, Rodgers talent-wise is definitely up there with the all-time greats, but, there's a difference between talent and personal success. And success for Rodgers has not come kindly to him over the past several years. So that will definitely impact him one way or the other.
Well, one guy that has definitely been successful is Mr. Tom Brady, who is going to be playing in his 10th Super Bowl, Matt. He's going for his 7th ring overall. Can you believe it?
No. but hey, good for him though, right?
It's incredible, man. I mean, I still think Belichick is going to go down as one of the greatest coaches of all time, but I think it's definitely a statement made by Brady that he's able to go to a new team, and in the very first year, he takes them to the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, Belichick's Patriots went 7-9, I believe, this past season. Didn't even make the playoffs. So
yeah, that's
correct. I don't
correct.
know, man. Maybe it was more to do with Brady than Belichick. I don't know. I mean, obviously together they made a great team, but man, it's going to be interesting to see what Belichick's going to do with that Patriots team heading into 2021, because he's got a lot to prove all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought that was a storyline coming into this year as well. And, the Patriots underachieved and Brady still is going to Super Bowls on a different team. So, I mean, I think it's just the greatness of Brady. Like he's obviously the greatest quarterback in our lifetime in history of football, in my opinion. So, I just can't wait though until someone dethrones him, and it might be happening this Sunday or coming Sunday, 2 Sundays from now. So we'll see.
We will see, and like I said, we will do a full preview of the Super Bowl next week, but not this week. But yeah, Brady just elevates everybody's game, Matt. I mean, not even just the offensive players, but the defense as well. Like, he demands perfection. He demands the best out of you. And he has that effect on people, man. Like, he could literally probably go to whatever team he wants, and he's going to get the best out of each and every one of those guys. And if he does it, well, their ass is going to be on the street.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know when he was in New England, Matt, there was a lot of stories every other year, it seemed like, that would come out about players on the Patriots being upset that they didn't get elected to a Pro Bowl. And Brady would come up from behind and be like, dude, shut the F up. We're not here for Pro Bowls. We're here for the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, because, it's funny. I watched a video earlier today, and Julian Edelman, the longtime Patriots receiver, he's never been to a Pro Bowl himself, but guess what? He's got 3 rings. So, it's players like that, he always elevates players that would probably be nobodies on other teams. But if Brady's on your team, he makes it a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. So that's what we know coming out of the NFC. How about the AFC? Well, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Billy Bobs, Matt. We both thought that the Bills were going to win. But we also thought it was going to be a spectacular game, and it was far from it, as the Chiefs won 38-24, advancing to their 2nd consecutive Super Bowl. Matt, what were your thoughts on this game? I was just beyond disappointed with the Bills' performance.
Yeah, it's kind of a boring game for the most part. I mean, Buffalo had that 9-0 lead early, so you're thinking, oh, okay, Buffalo came to play. But, like what Patrick Mahomes does, he just like that, the comeback was on. Sorry, we lost some light in here, but
yeah, you're in the dark.
There we go. But
you forget to pay the electricity bill?
I'm broke, man. but anyway, yeah, it was just a boring game, the Chiefs and the Bills. But I mean, I'd still give the Bills credit, though. I mean, they had a hell of a year. They won 2 playoff games, so they're not that far off, and they're going to be back. But I feel like the game was more just about Kansas City and their continued success that they've been having the past several years now. I mean, it really looks like they built they built an unstoppable force over there. So, uh, yeah, and of course it's led by Mahomes. So like I said, good season for the Bills, but the Chiefs are just too much still.
Yeah, honestly, man, the most exciting thing that happened in that game was towards the end with all the fighting that was happening. So Josh Allen, refused to go down on that sack where he lost like 500 yards, it felt like. And then he throws the ball at the Chiefs player head. I forget who it was that he threw the ball at, but it bounced off his head. And that just started this big old brawl. It wasn't that big, but still, there was a lot of pushing and shoving, guys falling down and whatnot. So that was honestly the most exciting part of the game there in the last few minutes. So other than that, it was quite a dud. But yeah, I agree, Matt. Good season for the Bills. Obviously, next year they're going to try to make that one, that next step, that next leap, try to get to the Super Bowl. But yeah, the Chiefs are just too much. I mean, Mahomes, when he's on, he's probably the best quarterback, best player in all of football. So, I wasn't surprised that the Chiefs won, but I was just a little surprised by the fact that it really wasn't close at all. But again, the Chiefs are the defending champs, so they didn't really feel any pressure, I guess. They just went out there and did what they needed to do and took care of business.
Yeah, it definitely made our predictions look bad, but but like we were saying, Kansas City, man, they just from top to bottom, that whole organization they got it going on right now, and the Bills really did have to play a perfect game, in my opinion, to beat them, and their performance was anything but perfect, but still a great season for Buffalo, and with them having Josh Allen, of course, they'll be back. They'll be back.
Kansas City has got it going on.
Yeah, I knew you'd get that reference.
Well, of course. Yeah, and Matt, also just to tie a bow on this topic here of the NFL, but I was also impressed by the Chiefs' defense. I thought they really kind of rose to the occasion.
Yeah, it's a good point. They held Josh Allen down pretty good in that offense. So because Buffalo definitely has got a lot of playmakers. They got Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs. They got playmakers there, so they did a good job holding them down.
Very reminiscent of how the last matchup went between those two teams earlier in the season. I believe it was a Thursday night game, Matt, if I'm not mistaken, when the Chiefs beat the Bills in Buffalo. It was kind of the same thing. Josh Allen just couldn't get it going. I'm pretty sure his two worst games of the season were both against the Chiefs.
Yeah, yeah. So he's got to study that playbook, man, and watch
He'll
the
be
film.
fine. He deserves the MVP, though. I would give him the MVP over Rodgers, but I know Rodgers is going to win it again because Rodgers apparently cares more about MVPs and Super Bowls. Lol. I just hit my elbow against my printer. That freaking hurt. Oh. Sorry, I'm getting
That's great. That's great.
All right, so I say we stop there with the NFL talk, Matt. Again, next week's episode, all about the Super Bowl, so we'll get more into it, more, little details, some matchups to look for and whatnot. But let's turn the page, Matt, to our next topic. What? Oh, to some Lakers talk, which is also going to be very brief since they lost tonight. Man, they lose to the Detroit Pistons, Matt, the 4-win Pistons. Just totally laying they lost by double digits tonight. And then, of course, they lost last night in a heartbreaker to the 76ers, a game that they were trailing for the most part, and they came back at the very end, took the lead, and then Tobias Harris hits that three with a few seconds left, and they lost last night too. So a couple back-to-back heartbreaking losses, or just tough losses for the Lakers here. So I believe their record is now, are they 16-6?
14-6.
14-6.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, they've obviously have played very well up to this point. I mean, that's not a bad start at all, but man, it just really feels like, especially tonight, proving my point, they're just playing down to their competition, Matt. I mean, they're letting these little rinky-dink teams just punch them in the mouth, and they're just like, meh, it's whatever, man. It's the regular season. We don't care. And I get that, but man, I'm slightly concerned from what I've seen these last couple games here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not that concerned about the Lakers only because I think every NBA team has hiccups during the season. Like I think even last year the Lakers they had a 4 or 5 game losing streak at one point, and they end up being world champions. So I mean, I feel like it's bound to happen to every team, but it is a little concerning though that they lost to the Pistons because they look like they'll probably be a top 3 pick team this coming draft.
Lottery
But
team.
yeah, but I feel like also too. I know they wouldn't admit it, but I feel like the effects of them having such a short offseason is having an effect, at least on some of the players. It's not having an effect on LeBron, but Anthony Davis has been dealing with a bunch of injuries. I think he missed tonight's game too, as well. Um, and they're also trying to incorporate all the new guys into the system. So I still feel like they're going to be okay, but it's a bit of a rough patch right now for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if Vogel was resting, AD and LeBron more, but LeBron's been playing a ton of minutes so far this year, Matt, which to me is a little puzzling. I mean, I commend LeBron for gutting it out the way he is, considering how short the offseason was for them. But to me, you might as well just start resting LeBron and AD as much as you can, especially during these games that really don't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things this early on, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like at some point there will be a time where they'll be having minutes restrictions for their players, but I think it's still early on. They probably want to get, they want to rise up the standings a bit more because they're currently number 2. They might be number 3 though after this loss, but I think they would prefer to get up to that number 1 seed or around there and have it more secure before, the resting takes place.
I hear you. But honestly, Matt, watching these games so far this year, I feel like maybe the biggest area that they need to possibly look at improving, if they can, whether it's picking up somebody that gets bought out of their contract or maybe a trade, is the center position. Because as we know, the Lakers lost both Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee during the offseason. And to replace those two, they brought in Marc Gasol, who looks like he's about 75, pushing 100. And then you got Montrezl Harrell, who has been great, but he's kind of an undersized center if you're going to use him there. He's what, I believe 6'8", 6'9". So he's a little overmatched with some of these guys that he's going against. So I feel like that's kind of where they need to focus on as far as improving, if they can anyways, by picking up another center. I don't know if that person is going to be out there or not, but if they can grab somebody, I think that would go a long ways because Gasol, I think, has played better recently, and he's still a great passer, probably the best passer on the team. But his defense has been a bit suspect. He hasn't really provided anything on the offensive end. So I don't know, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think they definitely need to get another big. I think Marc Gasol at this point. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's a bit of a delay, I guess.
Connection, man.
Good old Zoom, man. Zoom, zoom, zoom.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. but yes, I was gonna say that I do agree with you. They do need to get another big because Gasol, I think at this point of his career, is nothing more than a role player that brings leadership. And Montrezl Harrell is more of a power forward, and he's kind of a small power forward at that too. So if there's a trade market for a center, and preferably a defensive center, that would be ideal.
Is Joel Embiid going to be available? Raffle.
I don't think so.
There's like a 10-second pause there. Gotta love our internet connection around here. Yeah, so we'll see what happens, man. I agree. I don't think it's worth getting that, bent out of shape or concerned about. But I guess for me, this team is loaded, man. Like this team on paper is better than the team we saw win the championship in October because Dennis Schroeder and Harrell alone, those two acquisitions, have made this team much more deep. I mean, their bench is phenomenal. So, and also Kyle Kuzma, I know we've given him a lot of crap in the past, but he's actually played very well this year, I think. And I really wish that THT Horton Tucker over there would get more playing time because every time he plays, he's been fantastic. So there's definitely been a lot of bright spots. So I'm not overly concerned. I'm a Lakers fan, man. I guess I just demand perfection.
Yeah, I mean, having as many titles as the Lakers have, you do expect, you know, something more all the time. But it's also worth noting that Contavious Caldwell Pope has shooting 51% this year from the floor. So he's been because a lot of Laker fans have also given him crap as well, but he's been playing
Oh,
ever since
yeah.
the bubble. Ever since the bubble, he's been playing well.
Me being one of them. Yeah, KCP, man, he's definitely earning that contract that they gave him this
Yeah.
offseason. He's definitely been playing well. And obviously he was a big reason why the Lakers won the championship last year because he did, play above expectations in the playoffs and in the finals. So gotta give love to KCP, man. Good call there.
Thank you, bro.
So we'll see what happens moving forward with our Lake show. Matt, before we wrap things up with the Baseball Hall of Fame talk, I did want to briefly mention I know this is a very tough subject and topic for us to even get into, but a couple of days ago was the 1 year anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death, January 26, 2020. One of the toughest days of my life, honestly. I know for you as well. And I'm not trying to sound over dramatic, but it was tough. Tuesday was tough. Him and Gigi and his entire family, they were on my mind the entire day. I just kind of kept reliving that day last year, just how tough it was and how tough it was to just get over. I mean, I'm still not over it. I don't know if I ever will be. Just awful, just awful to have to relive that. And I don't know, like, I mean, I know you remember it quite well. Where were you when the news broke and what happened after that? Because I don't remember. I don't think you were with me when the news broke.
Yeah. So I had I mean, obviously there's never a good time to hear that kind of news, but it was shortly after I clocked in at the old country club.
Old Death
And
Valley.
yeah. And keep in mind too, I was pretty new working there too, so I was kind of a newer employee. But yeah, I think I was just washing one of the carts, and one of the kitchen ladies, I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
um, she she came walking down the pathway, and she showed me her phone, and it said, helicopter crash involving Kobe, and it said that he passed away, of course, and I didn't believe it. Like my first instinct was just like, no, like that's got, because you see it a lot of times with these sick reporters. They post stories that about people dying, and they're not true. And I was just hoping that it was just a sick joke, but you know, I took the time and just Googled Kobe Bryant, and yeah, it was everywhere, and it was very, very tough to take. That was an awful day. I just had clocked in for work too, so I had to deal with that while working and dealing with people. So it was very, very brutal. I had to drive down to the driving range and just sit down there for like an hour just to process it. It was brutal, man.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I, didn't want to believe it, didn't think it was real. I mean, there was all kinds of reports coming out, man. I remember they were also saying that Rick Fox was on the helicopter with them, which obviously was
Yeah.
bogus. So there was just some crazy rumors going around. There was also, I think, a rumor that all of his daughters were with them or something, and Vanessa, his wife, just insane. But yeah, then when we found out, like, it was confirmed that he was on that helicopter in Gigi, man, it was just, yeah, something I'll never forget. I was home when the news broke. I was actually just about to head out and drive down to the San Diego airport to pick up my wife because she was flying back from a business meeting in Texas, actually. So I was already, not in the greatest of moods because for those that have been to the San Diego airport, you can understand why. It's not always a fun place to drive down to. And then that news breaks, man. I shed a few tears, and it was just so rough, so rough. And I don't know how Vanessa and his daughters have been able to get by or get through all this, but my hat certainly goes off to them. And I certainly hope that they're doing okay. Just probably just taking it day by day. I mean, that's all they really can do. So I just wanted to, wish them well. I mean, obviously, I know nobody from the Bryant household is ever going to watch this, but I definitely want them to know that Laker Nation is behind them. And I'd like to think that most of the country has their back, and of course, has them in their hearts as well. So it's just brutal, man. Life sucks. It really does. You just never know when it's going to be your time. And the worst part about it was just the fact that Kobe dedicated, everything he had to the Lakers for 20 years when he was playing. And he finally got an opportunity to spend time with his kids. And just like that, it's just taken away from him. And he won a freaking Oscar, for crying out loud, a couple years into his retirement. I mean, he was on to doing just far greater things than even what he did on the basketball court. And it was taken away from him. And then, of course, Gigi was on her way to probably being, the next face of the WNBA. So she was fantastic as a teenager. So just tough. You just got to live your life to the fullest every single day. Classic example right there.
Yeah, that was very well said. But yeah, that it's definitely tough. And obviously we joke around a lot on our shows, and but that was just a very sad day, and still sad just the following days after, and to this day it's just. But I guess the one thing, if you try to look at it positively, the 41 years that man lived on this earth, man, he accomplished pretty much damn near everything. So he made the most of all the life he is given. So I think all of us can, aspire to live a lifestyle like that at the very least, with that Mamba mentality. But yeah, we'll always remember him, and like you said, we'll always be thinking about Vanessa and the family, because they'll always be a part of Laker Nation, because we're grieving with them.
Definitely. And I mentioned it on Twitter on Tuesday, but it's just crazy how somebody that we never even met or knew personally, like he just had such an impact on us that when we found out he passed, Matt, it literally felt like it was one of our own family members or a close friend that we had lost. And I think that also speaks to the fact that we have not really, to this point, thankfully, experienced really many close deaths in our lives, in our personal lives. But yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, man, like if I can't even handle, a guy that was my childhood hero growing up, my sports hero, I can't handle him passing away. Gosh, God help me when somebody that's actually legitimately close to me, unfortunately, passes away at some point. So it really kind of puts things in perspective. But I mean, my Laker fandom began with Kobe Bryant, and I've said this before, but when he retired, I mean, yes, I'm obviously still a Lakers fan, as you can see, but I don't really consider myself quite as hardcore of a fan as I was during his career, because there was really nobody that I enjoyed watching more than him. So, I just thought it was important for us to mention him tonight.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he meant a lot to me as well. He was, I mean, I don't. He was definitely one of the biggest reasons why I started to play basketball. I'll put it to you that way. It just says just for so many people, other people as well. But I was pretty much like the young kid who would try to do fadeaways, the schoolyard, just like Kobe would, and he definitely had an impact on my life. And, it's kind of like what I said earlier, but you know, we 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 can learn so much from even to this day, just the wisdom that he dropped on all of us. So, uh, we'll never forget him, and we love him and we love his families, and it just proves, it's always good to keep in touch with people that you care about because you never know what might happen tomorrow.
Well said, brother. Well said. All right, so we had to start our recording over again because it shut down on us this last one. Luckily, it's saved though, so we're going to go ahead and continue on with what we were going to transition into, Matt, which is the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The ballots were counted, and guess who's going to the Hall of Fame in 2021?
Well, at least 5 players.
Nobody. 0.
What?
Yeah. So let me, again, try to share my screen here. Let me see if this is going to work for us or not. All right. Can you still hear me, Matt?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. There's everybody. Everybody can see what I've been doing today on Robinhood. All right. So, Matt, the guy that had the most percentage of the votes was Curt Schilling, who came in at 71.1%. I believe you need to have at least 75% to be elected, right, Matt?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You were looking at me like I had a second head, so I thought I was wrong there. So, Matt, to me, this is a joke that nobody's going to the Hall of Fame this year, that nobody got elected. I mean, yes, there are guys on this list that shouldn't even be on the list. Guys like Aramis Ramirez and LaTroy Hawkins and Shane Victorino and Michael Kadire. Yeah, none of those guys should even be on the list. So I agree with that. But there's at least 3 or 4 guys here that I feel like should already probably be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, what are your thoughts as you're looking at this list?
You're kind of cutting out there, but I think just by general observations are Curt Schilling missed out by 4%. And I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, that's kind of a line I don't really want to cross too much because, mostly because of the outspoken things he says. You don't have to agree with him. You don't have to like him. In fact, you can hate Curt Schilling, but I personally do think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame just based off of his play. Um, he's one of the most clutch pitchers in the history of baseball, and he helped teams win World Series. That's what he did. So, I mean, if you hate him, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to disagree with you there, but I do think that Schilling deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. As far as Bonds and Clemens go, that's a whole other can of worms.
For fishing. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Matt, on Schilling. I mean, he is a rotten human being. I mean, I don't even want to get into some of the things he said. I believe he's talked about hanging the media or reporters or something like that. I don't even want to. I don't even want to go there. Like, I agree, the guy is an awful, awful person. But if we're just looking at overall career, like what he did on the diamond, he is not only one of the better pitchers that I ever watched growing up, but he's probably one of the greatest postseason pitchers of all time as well. I mean, he was a part of what I believe 3 World Series teams, 2 of which that actually won the championship. He was on the Phillies in '93 when they went to the World Series. He was on the Diamondbacks in '01 when him and Randy Johnson were dominating the Yankees. And then, of course, he was part of the Red Sox team that broke the curse of Bambino. So none of those teams probably even get to the World Series without Curt Schilling, to be honest with you. So to me, he's a Hall of Famer. I can understand why some of the voters don't want to put him in. But again, like to me, the number one thing is, was he a great player? Yes, he was. Was he one of the best at his position during most of his career? Yes, he was. So to me, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you there. I mean, I think, like you said, the ballots were counted, and I think, like you said, 5 players. I mean, if you hate him, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to disagree with you there, but I do think that Schilling deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. as far as Bonds and Clemens go, I do think it's worth mentioning since next year is going to be their last year of eligibility. So that's going to be a major storyline next year. I I really think that's a huge discussion. We could probably make an entire episode off that, but I guess my general take on that is, even though they did like they were very good even before the steroids came into play, I still would not let them in because then the whole argument of letting other steroid users come into play. And I feel like it should be one way or the other, where you either let all of them in or you don't let any of the steroid users in. That's just my take on it. So
Now,
it
Matt,
looks like they probably won't make it.
I'm going to have to cut you off there and say I disagree. And you know why? I used to think the
Oh,
way that you
really?
did. Oh, I dropped my pen. I used to think the exact same way that you did, Matt. I said, do not let Bonds, Clemens, Sosa, any of those assholes in the hall. They cheated the game, man. But guess what? Alan H. Bud Selig, the commissioner of baseball during the steroid era, who knew what was going on and let it happen because the game was never more popular at the time, is in the Hall of Fame. So if that jackass is in the Hall of Fame, you might as well start letting some of these guys in, Matt, because to me, that's just not fair. I know life's not fair, but it's just not right. Bud Selig was one of the worst commissioners, not only in baseball history, but in sports history. So if he got in, to me, what's keeping Bonds and Clemens out? Both guys were great before the steroids. Bonds, yes, we know he cheated. I know it was never technically proven, but the guy was probably the most feared hitter of our generation, maybe of all time. So I don't know, man. Like to me, put Bonds and Clemens in. I think that they've kind of had to pay the price for what they did, considering that they're now going into their last year of eligibility, like you said. But to me, they're Hall of Famers. I mean, once Selig got in, I was like, let him in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I never even thought about that. You kind of caught me off guard with that argument, but yeah, that's a good point. But I would that is true, and that's kind of a disgrace now that I think about that. Alan H. Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame. That's kind of pitiful in my opinion. But
It's awful. It really is.
yeah, but 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 the only thing is though is that I still, if Bonds and Clemens are in, a lot of these other players, they will never get in, and I don't know. It's just kind of would be weird to have like two of them and then all the rest of them not be in it. So
Well, man, I mean, who else is there that
that's
you
kind
would? Who else would you say? I mean, to me, Sammy Sosa is not a Hall of Famer because if you take away the home runs he hit, the guy has pedestrian numbers, man. He has 2,408 hits, which isn't great. His career batting average was 273, which is not very good. And not only did Sammy Sosa take steroids, Matt, he used a corked bat. So, like, there's a lot of things going against him there.
yeah.
Not to mention, he was awful before steroids. I mean, he struck out more than anybody in baseball before he started taking steroids. At least Bonds was a hell of a player before he started juicing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think another thing that they clearly take in the equation is like the integrity of the player, and you know, knowing the fact that Bonds and Clemens lied about their usage of steroids throughout their careers, and I think that's also a big factor to why they're not in, or they probably won't be in as well, because just like Curt Schilling, for instance, they look at integrity, and if you're a scumbag, that nobody likes, they're not they're going to be pretty harsh on you. So that's another factor into it as well.
Yeah, I agree. Some of these other guys, Matt, real quick. I mean, Scott Rowland, that's a tough one for me. I mean, Scott Rowland was a hell of a player, but he had so many injuries, and you look at his career numbers, and they're just lacking a bit. 2,000 hits barely, 316 homers. I mean, yeah, he was definitely one of the better third basemen in the game during his prime, but I just don't feel like he's got enough numbers there to get in. So I would say no on him. Omar Vizquel, one of the greater defensive shortstops the game's ever seen, but I don't know, man. Like he was never a guy because I, grew up during most of his career. I never looked at him as a Hall of Fame player. I think if there was a Hall of Good, he would be in. I just don't think Omar Vizquel has the numbers to get in. Billy Wagner's borderline. I mean, for a brief moment in time there, he was probably the best closer in the National League next to Trevor Hoffman. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are kind of borderline. I would put Gary Sheffield in personally. I thought Sheff had a great career. Todd Helton, he played at Coors Field most of his entire career, actually. And his numbers are even a little suspect considering. So I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a lot of guys here that I probably wouldn't put in, Matt, but I just think it's a travesty that nobody got elected this year. That was my whole point.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of good players on there for sure, but there's not many that are just jumping off the screen that are just like, yeah, that's a Hall of Famer. Like last year with like Larry Walker and Derek Jeter, we definitely had that effect. But this year we got solid play. I think Gary Sheffield is a player that I think deserves more respect, but even he's kind of like, I don't know, he's not like a clear-cut guy either. I'm kind of like that with Jeff Kent as well. He's pretty good, but he's not clear cut either. So yeah, that's brutal. No Hall of Famers for 2021. I mean, it happens with baseball too often where they have a year like this where no one gets elected, and that's a real shame, to be honest with you. Sorry, I was cutting out a little bit, but yeah, I do agree. It's going to be interesting to see what players get in. That'll be something to look forward to.
Definitely. Well, Matt, I could go on and on.
Yeah, I hear you now.
I could go on and talk for hours about this process and the Hall of Fame voting, but clearly both of our internet connections are not being kind to us, and they're trying to tell us something. So I'm going to go ahead and end the show right there on that note. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, again, smash that subscribe button, hit the like button, and of course, comment. We would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Hall of Fame, the Lakers, the Super Bowl coming up? Anything. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Get interactive. And until next time, I'm Ryan Willis. And he's Matt Willis.
I'm Matt Willis.
Okay, there he goes. Bye. Lakers, play better. Do better. All right.